me get you more of what analysts across the world are talking about right now. In fact, headlines, even in the United States of America, seem to indicate US President blinked. Big story coming in. India stood firm. The US President Donald Trump blinked. It was the American president who called up Prime Minister Narendra Modi. It was the American president who spoke of tariff being reduced and a deal being sealed. The trade deal, according to sources, and this is pretty much on India's terms and not under pressure. Though what sources are saying, India, of course, was even looking at lower tariffs between 10 and 15%. That was the basket that India was aiming at, but 18% is manageable, is what sources are saying. Anything more than 20 to between 20 and 25% would have been a little tough. 18% is okay. We're looking at something between 10 and 15%. What incidentally is something that India or analysts are saying, that while America repeatedly tried to provoke India, India did not get provoked. India stood firm, stood negotiating, did not go for surround sound that India is a dead economy, India is fueling the war in Russia. All of that surround sound was ignored, not responded to, because India played the long game. And after the India-EU deal, it was the US President Donald Trump who appears to have blinked. Jain Krishna, is that also your reading of the situation, that India stood firm? India did not go for surround sound that came from whether it was Howard Lutnick saying India, or Scott Bessent saying, you India India's funding the Russian war, or the President Trump, the US President saying we are a dead economy. All of that India ignored, just kept negotiating.
So I think, Gaurav, you're right. India behaved with a lot of maturity in the last 10 months, if we look at. There were all kinds of provocations when President Trump said that India is a failed economy. When India and Russia met the Chinese president, he made a comment, oh, we have lost Russia and India to China, right? All kinds of things he has been saying, right? But the fact is that India behaved in a very, very responsible manner and always kept the interest of our own exporters, and especially, the farmers and dairy entrepreneurs. I think that's very, very commendable. There was a huge pressure because US wants to sell, corn, soya products, and so on and so forth into India, large chunks, and which will be detrimental to our own farmers. So I think India has played its cards very well by protecting its the interest of our small and marginal farmers and dairy entrepreneurs. And while it is still not known whether the 18% tariff would apply whether the agriculture products have been kept within the purview or outside the purview of this trade deal, like with the European Union, agro products have been kept outside the purview of the FTA that which has just been finalized. So that is not clear. But I think India has to be complimented for not compromising with the interest of our farmers and dairy entrepreneurs, and also in the entire spell of almost 10 months, it behaved with a lot of responsibility, never retaliated despite all provocations, and I think that eventually has seems to have paid good dividends to India, right? And other than the setback of last couple of months, I think our exports are going to bounce back again. Indian exports to the US.
And Mitali, even there were three legs of this partnership. High-end science and technology cooperation, defense cooperation, and looking at the trade deal. Barring the trade deal, even in the past 1 year, it's virtually been on an even keel on the other two, barring, of course, niggles and major issues like the G404 engines being delayed.
Absolutely, Gaurav. And in fact, if you remember February 2025, I'm literally getting flashes of February 2025 when Prime Minister Modi went, and had his meeting with a newly elected President Trump. And, they committed to actually increasing India-US trade to $500 billion. At that time, there were so many sectors that were discussed. Today we are talking about labor-intensive MSMEs because they've been the ones that have been most impacted by the tariffs. tariffs. But at that time, we had discussed sectors like pharmaceuticals, we had talked about science and technology, joint investments in research and development, in new frontiers, even space research was one of the areas that at that time had actually got a lot of attention. And it was discussed that, these are the areas where India and US have a natural partnership. And I think one of the main points that was coming was that whether it's Indian companies investing in the US or US companies investing in India, this business to business collaboration, which of course Mr.
Yes.
Birla also highlighted, I think if you think about the timing of this deal coming soon after Davos, it's also very interesting because, President Trump did go to Davos. We also saw a
Yes.
very strong Indian delegation in Davos. And the business community definitely has had a role to play in highlighting these complementarities between the two countries. And really, I hope that this has actually brought, more sense into the negotiations.
Well, extremely sensible throughout from the Indian side, as you very rightly pointed out. Let me also bring in Pranay on the aspect of this sudden warmth with Pakistan, a state sponsor of radical Islamist terror. And that again was something because Trump 1.0 was realizing how Pakistan was involved even in killing of American soldiers in Afghanistan, how $33 billion had been sunk in Pakistan, no returns from Pakistan. But Trump 2.0, whether it was cryptocurrency family deal, whether it was Iran or Afghanistan, whatever was the reason, Trump suddenly made a U-turn on Pakistan. But now again, there appears to be, this rare earth minerals conference that's happening. I believe Pakistan hasn't been invited. There's a lot of bad blood and heartburn in Pakistan because of this, Pranay.
Absolutely. There's a lot of heartburn, and I was just going through the social media chatter from some of the Pakistani social media handles, and they're clearly asking the questions that where do we stand? Pakistan is not even invited for the critical mineral meeting, which will be held in Washington D.C. on 4th of February, where India will be represented by External Affairs Minister. And you have seen those pictures, Gaurav, and if I may borrow your own words from our previous conversation, that we have seen how Pakistan has been used, and thrown in dustbin by the United States. And we have seen in the past. And that's why the Pakistanis are also asking this question that where do we stand? And when you compare the strategy of India and Pakistan always think that flattery is strategy. Rather, and on the other contrary to that, India has always taken time, balanced its strategy, and worked for the tangible gains. And here is a tangible gain. Here's an outcome wherein, if you see, the Pakistan was offered a higher, a greater competitive access for the Pakistani goods. But the larger question remains that where is the investment? Where is the capital for that production? Where is the production facility? And even if they have been given access, where are the products? And that remains
Oh,
a question.
absolutely.
That's why this is how the India might and India's the Indian power works.
Oh, absolutely, because Pakistan's only notable export remains radical Islamist terror, and the world must beware. I mean, there must be 100% tariffs on Pakistani state terror that unfortunately bleeds people across the world.